Hello, welcome to the Questionable Calls podcast. It is Sunday, a little after 3:30 Eastern time. Got a bunch of stuff going on. Got NBA's kind of heating up, getting into the stretch run, and we got the NFL just had the combine, so we got NFL topics to talk about. But my biggest thing this week, and Clark, we talked about this. We talked about this last week, but I was amazed at the whining and complaining that everybody had about the college football playoff. They're basically we're locked into 12 teams for the next 2 years, but just the fact that they were discussing expanding it to 14 and maybe having automatic bids for the main the four conferences. Just I just couldn't believe the complaints that I was hearing, the just incessant, oh my God, you're going to ruin the sport if you do this. And I have some theories on why the media reacts this way, and I think it's a bit of a falsehood. I don't really believe a lot of what the media is saying, and I don't think it translates to what people actually think about it or what's actually going to happen. I think it's just kind of more typical than I realized, but I was shocked about the whining and complaining about it. I'm going to go through the excuses or the complaints that everybody has, but first, just your overall take, because I thought this was really funny. Like, I was thinking that I was calling you, and you answer the phone and go, God, there's a lot of people whining about this, and I was just like, how are we completely on the same page in this? So what are your initial thoughts?
I was scrolling through YouTube and I saw like a title of a video of PTI, and it was like, "Is this ruining college football?" And then I think I heard some stuff on the Dan Le Batard show. I listened to a little bit of Dan Patrick, whining about it, and I just was like, what is going on here? I don't understand. I mean, I feel like you guys are the people who have been whining and complaining about the way college football crowns a national champion for decades, and now you're complaining because they're expanding the playoff and giving more teams a shot to win the national championship. And by the way, the group of five team probably has a much better chance of at least one group of five team getting in like every year. So I thought that's what you guys wanted. I thought that's what like a bunch of the people in the media wanted. I thought that was the whole deal. Like, expand the playoff, give more teams a shot. Like, not enough teams have a shot, and then somebody at the end of the year ends up getting screwed. I thought this is what we all wanted, and now not only are we getting it, okay, but they could expand it even further. And then the thing that just happened with Florida State, that's never going to happen ever again. I mean, when was the last time you can remember in a sport where you go, man, this is a problem, and then literally like the worst thing happens, and then a few months later, oh yeah, it's fixed. When does that ever happen? That doesn't happen in the government. That doesn't happen in politics. That doesn't happen in sports. They just fixed it. So this is what you guys wanted, and I think the larger point, which we were talking about the other day, look, if you want to, I'm all for criticizing stuff. That's what we do, basically. Every time we're on the podcast, I mean, we criticize stuff. That's fine, okay? But if you're going to criticize stuff, I think you need to have an alternative way of doing things that you think is better. And if you complain and then things end up changing in a way that's more toward what you want, you got to at least express some gratitude and be like, oh, this is great. We're finally getting what we want. Because otherwise, it's just disingenuous to criticize everything every year. Then you're just complaining to complain. And who the hell wants to listen to that? I mean, don't turn off this podcast because, we do a lot of complaining. But still, I think that was the larger point that we were kind of making the other day when we were talking.
Yeah, I think I'm really confused by it, but all right. So I'm going to go through this. So these are the main big complaints that I heard this past week. Okay, nobody wants this. Nobody wants it.
And when there will be the long-term ramifications that come with every choice being greedy about everything. Like in the short term, there are no ramifications. In short term, it's chaos, it's content, and the sport keeps getting more popular. But I have no understanding of what the long-term ramifications are.
Not another empowerment greed spin on this. The games are awesome. Games mean something.
There it is.
I mean, the bowl games suck. We all know the bowl games suck.
Oh,
Let's get 2 more meaningful weeks of football games.
I'm sorry. Did you
bowl
watch the famous
games
Toastery
suck?
Bowl?
Yeah, that one was actually quite good.
There were a lot of good bowl games this year, sir.
There's like there's a huge wide open lane of bowl games. And it occupies roughly a week and a half of the sports calendar.
It's the
Let's
best week and a
replace
half of the sports calendar.
Let's replace that week with games that matter. And I love that they actually came to a conclusion 5 and 7. Yeah, no, that's good. 12 teams. This is actually not as bureaucratic as we all expected. They actually landed on this. They had a great meeting. And then someone at the very end, presumably a television exec, said, what if we added 2 more? Just marinate on that a little bit.
I think the ask from, at least from me specifically, is let's try out 12. And if it doesn't work, maybe we talk about reformatting. But we haven't even tried 12 yet.
I think we should try 17. I don't know how it works. Just do it.
Right, which is just hysterical to me that and you know what's funny, like it's like there's some young people on this train, Clark, young people that want college football to be like it was in 1985. I don't get that at all. I'm totally confused by that. I don't think young people realize what was going on where we're splitting the national championship. I'd like to why don't we go back to that? Like, I would love to see the young people react to that nonsense. Anyway, it's going to ruin college football. The season's going to take too long. We don't need automatic bids, which that's actually a good discussion point, but regardless, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that actually we should get into that later. That is actually a fair point that I think I would be up for going into the ins and outs of that issue. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, it's going to ruin the regular season. It's all about the money, which this is my favorite, Clark. It's all about the money. No shit. What a freaking shock. You're kidding me. You're telling me that sports, the sport that is turning more into professional sports every day is about the money? No way. Say it ain't so. I can't believe it. This one I think is interesting. It destroyed the Pac-12. Basically, this is a Dan Wetzel argument. His argument is that if they'd agreed to the 12-team playoff back in 2019 or 2020 when it was originally presented, then the Pac-12 wouldn't have got destroyed. I disagree with it, but we'll move on for just a second.
Okay.
The Big Ten and the SEC are they're taking over the sport. And my favorite is the Big Ten and the SEC are going to separate from everybody and go form their own super league.
They already have.
Well, they already have, but we can, but anyway. So yeah, those are the main ones that I want to address. As far as nobody wants this, I think you're going to find that millions and millions of people that watch it on TV are going to want this. The idea that nobody wants it is ridiculous. I think that is a media creation. That is the media telling us that they don't want it. That doesn't mean the fans don't want it. Trust me, the fans of Ole Miss and Penn State and Notre Dame, all the teams that now didn't get to make the playoff before but are now going to make it most of the time, they're going to be happy. And the fans of Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State, they're going to be happy too because they're going to be in the semifinals every year.
Yeah.
So I'm confused at the people who don't want this. What are you kidding me? Like, I'm sorry. Everyone wants this. Wait until the games come on. Once the games come on, no one's going to give a shit about any of this. They're all going to watch the games incessantly.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. Let me tell you something else. All you guys who love Cinderella stuff, like, I'm not saying that's going to happen all that much, but every now and then, maybe you get into one screwy game, somebody gets hurt, or there's some wild play, or there's a turnover or something. Some group of 5 schools going to end up advancing. Okay, and look, I think that's going to be cool. That'll be fun whenever it does happen. I think that'll be fun to see. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, you're going to get, like, guys. One of the things we've been like pining for with college football is, like, why can't we get Texas to play, Michigan, or Texas to play Ohio State, or Texas to play Oregon, or
Georgia.
USC, or like whatever. Like, can we get these huge brands to play each other more? And that's going to happen. It's not just going to be like, yeah, there'll be some SEC versus SEC, but you'll see SEC versus Big Ten, SEC versus Big 12, SEC versus West Coast team. You're going to see more of that now. Like, you're going to get more good games. Now, granted, a lot of that's going to be concentrated in the playoff itself. But look, the idea that and again, I've said that I really like the 14 playoff, and they could have left it that way and I would have been fine. But, the regular season's not going to be completely ruined. It's going to be different, okay? It's not going to be as compelling because it's not like, oh, we lost. Oh, crap, we may be out. It's not really going to be that way. But, I mean, look, think about it this way. If you guys are so concerned about other schools getting a shot, okay, if you're not one of these blue bloods, then yeah, every game is going to matter because you're probably not going to win your conference. So you're going to need to have as few losses as possible to be like the second best team in your conference. Then you can, or the third best team, maybe you can get it. You can still get in. So that makes it almost matter more because it's like, oh my God, we legit have a shot to get into this thing.
There's going to be more games in the season that you have to watch. And I know everybody's like, well, college football has the best regular season in sports. They do, but 40% of it is useless. Okay? Alabama playing Chattanooga is a waste of my time. Michigan playing Appalachian State is a waste of my time. So don't try to tell me that they pawn this off as, oh, the regular season's great. You're going to screw it up. Most of the regular season sucks anyway. Like, I'm sorry, don't give me this whatever. There's a handful of good games. Everybody tries to sell me, oh, my God, there's going to be so many good games now that the SEC and the Big Ten have all these teams. Most of the time, they don't play each other. So, now we've got more playoff games. The other thing is, like, the reason it's not going to ruin the regular season, like I just think getting so many more fan bases involved is just going to make a much bigger difference. You're going to have more fans that have a shot, and to me, that makes the regular season better. Yeah, there's probably going to be some rivalry games but the other thing is, another argument I heard was, well, these teams might play each other 3 times. Oh no, we can't have that. So let me get this straight. I get to watch Alabama and Georgia 3 times. Boy, that's going to suck. Boy, I'm really going to be disappointed in that. Okay, this is the Rams, right? The Rams won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, right? They played San Francisco twice in the regular season, then they played them in the NFC Championship game. Was anybody going, oh, I'm not watching that? They're playing for the 3rd time. No.
Yeah, no.
No? Of course they were interested. The stakes got higher. Every time you play, the stakes got higher. As long as that's the case, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, by the way, hold on. Ohio State or Michigan fans, if you lose the game in the regular season, you get to play them again in the playoff. And then if you beat them, you can go, oh, well, we beat you in the playoffs, so our game matters more. So, suck on that. Like, I mean, you're kidding? You're not going to be into that? Like, really? I think people are that's why, again, a lot of this feels disingenuous because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be into that. Really? Really? You're not going to be into that? Yeah, right. I don't buy it.
Well, and I think we've gotten so conditioned to college football being the way it is that, like, any change just it inspires a negative reaction immediately. So the biggest problem to me in college sports college football, the biggest downer was your postseason sucked. Okay, it sucked. You had the last game of the regular season, the conference championship, and then you took a month off.
Yep.
Right, which makes no sense. In no other sport would you ever do this. Right. So now we get more games. We get more games in the month of December where there's nothing going on. Right. Yeah. It's just the NFL basically taking everything over. You get more games that matter in December, which is a great time for people to be watching television. Why? Because they're all home. Everybody's on vacation or taking a trip or doing whatever, or traveling to see their family. So that's when people take a lot of time off work. So there we go. Now we've got college football games. We've got 2 more weekends of college football games that matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why for some reason, I think that's important. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Well, and then, so with the 12 team, basically you're going to get the conference championships, and then it's going to be 2 weeks, and then the
about
games?
2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see guys, we can get more. And by the way, the season's going to take longer. No. Some teams are going to have more games. The season is going to take the same amount of time.
Right.
I mean, it's the national championship game is going to be basically the same time, guys. It's not.
It'll be about 10 days later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So January 20th. Yeah. Yeah. Which,
yeah, but again, like once college football and the NFL end, isn't everybody kind of like bummed out a little bit? Okay, well, guess what? It's going to last longer. Like what the heck? It's not like a 3-hour movie where you go, man, they could have cut off about a half hour of this. No. This is going to be good. Okay, so
yeah. More games that matter. So no, I don't think the season will take too long. Like, oh my God, they're playing too many games now. Yeah, but all the players they get to make money off NIL now. The arguments that used to hold true in college football, we shouldn't make them play more games if they're not getting paid for it. Well, now they can. And basically the court has basically come down and said you can't punish players for anything that happens NIL wise. So it's literally a free for all. Go make all the money you can. Oh my God, they're gonna have to play this many games. They play 16 or 17 games in FCS anyway. Right? They have FCS playoffs. They play that many games anyway. So this argument that, oh well, we can't have that many games, it's just about the money. And just to get on that point about it's just being about the money. You think the NFL really needs 17 games because of they want to make the product better? You think that's why they have 17 games? No, it's about fucking money. We don't need 82 games in the regular season in the NBA. Why do we have that? Money. So stop acting like, oh my God, you guys are greedy and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, if they'd have just used their brains, if all these conferences just used their brains 20 years ago, we would have had this already. Like, if they're so greedy, why didn't we have a playoff for this amount of time? Why did it take so long? Because it's obviously the whole thing has always been about money.
Yeah, that whole argument is just I just literally I hear that and I'm just like, what? Yeah, it is. It's all about money. Yeah, what? Hello, have you been paying attention? I don't. What do you want me to tell you here? I don't get it.
Yeah, I heard a bogus argument. I'm watching Crane and Company the other day, and they had somebody on, and he said, well, you know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of the Alabama against Chattanooga. I don't need to see that game anymore. He's like, yeah, but that game pays for the swim team, so you got to have that game because of the blah blah blah. And I'm like, that is the guy on the other side was like, that's not a good argument anymore. Like, I'm sorry. You can't figure out these schools have huge endowments, and what nobody wants to talk about is, Clark, what takes away the swim team is not football. It's the fact that they all pay their administrators outrageous salaries these days for doing far less than what they're worth. That's the reason why schools don't like this, because they're going to have to stop ridiculously overpaying their administrators for nothing.
Right. I mean, there's some financial changes that they could make to be able to pay for different stuff. And then also, like, I don't know, this is maybe a lot larger conversation. Don't you think it's a little odd that we created a system where it's basically fully dependent on something else to actually raise the money for it?
Right.
Like that's a little strange. And also, like, depending on what the school is, like, if it's a really big school that we're talking about, then you guys can figure out how to still have a rowing team and a swimming team and, this and that other team. Because remember, with a lot of those other sports, you don't pay full ride scholarships. You pay like proportional scholarships. And it's a lot fewer than scholarships than you pay for in football, because football has like 85 scholarship players. So, they can kind of figure that out. I mean, look, I don't want to act unsympathetic to that, because I do think it's it can add something to your life to play a sport in college in addition to going to school, because you're going to play that sport. You're not going to go professional in that sport, because these are like Olympic sports. Unless you're like one of the best in the world, you're not going to be doing this after college, which is fine. So I am sympathetic to that, but I also just think you guys can figure this out. Right. Like the amount of money college football is making, like you can figure it out. And then don't complain about the NIL stuff. The NIL stuff is not money coming from the school.
Right.
This is from third parties. Okay. When we reach the point where the schools are actually literally paying them, and then they have to figure out all this stuff, then I'll have a little more sympathy with that. They'll have to figure that out. But we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, but it all can be figured out, Clark. Every business has to figure this out. So Let's see. What other notes did I put here? I talked about the postseason being nonsense this whole time. So now we actually are getting a reasonable postseason. And I would argue, Clark, I don't want to. We shouldn't be taking 2 weeks off in between some of these games. Like, let's just go from the conference championship and go every week until it's over. Like, you've got all these weekends where you can grab Saturdays. The NFL hasn't started the playoffs yet, so I think that's probably going to happen when the playoff actually expands. So let's look bigger picture at this, Clark. I think the nature of college, or the culture in college football, right, is complaining about stuff.
Yes.
My whole life, this is what it's been. The nonsense, we get to complain about the rankings, complain about where's this team ranked, this team should be ahead of this team, it's not fair, blah, 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 blah. So we've got that part is the culture of college football. So I think that is part of this. You can't divorce yourself from it when something happens. This is where everybody goes nuts. Oh, they're doing it wrong. They should do it like this. I think that, that's where the media goes. As soon as something goes wrong or changes, that's where they all go, oh, this is ridiculous and blah, 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 even though every other sport is basically doing the same thing. But their culture is not to complain about it, so it doesn't go to the same place.
Right.
And the idea that people are acting like, oh, this isn't, like, these sports, they're television products. That's what they're for, okay? That's why they exist. Okay, we got to stop with all this nonsense. It's all about fairness and all this crap. It's never been about that. It's always been about how do we make money off of this. That's how these leagues survive. So we got to just acknowledge it. Look, it's a television product. So why? Well, first of all, why are you stopping at 12 teams? Right? TV networks want more teams. So if you haven't figured that out, I don't know what to tell you, but I just think that it's just a departure from everything else. College football has always changed incredibly slowly for my entire life. So now that it feels like we went from, in 5 years, we went from a 4-team playoff to a 12-team playoff, and it could be even more than that a couple of years from now. I think it catches everybody off guard, and they're just confused about how to deal with it. That's the only explanation I can come up with, because the complaining about it doesn't make sense, and accusing all the conferences of being greedy when every other sports league we watch is all greedy. I just don't understand.
Well, and I guess, I'm probably a bigger NFL fan than I am college football fan, but my thing with college football is I've definitely had plenty of criticisms over the years, but for the most part, I just really enjoy college football.
Yep.
And I'm more focused on that than I am the stuff that I'm complaining about, or unless I'm reacting to somebody who's complaining and I'm like, I think you're wrong. I don't, I've just enjoyed college football. And this to me is just like, oh, great. College football there's going to be some things about this that are going to be better than before. So I'm going to enjoy it more. I just don't see and it's funny this coming from me, because I tend to be a pretty cynical person about a lot of stuff, but I'm sorry. I'm positive about this. I think this is going to be fun. And again, I'm even someone who was saying, I think I was fine with them staying with 4 teams. And I understand some of the criticisms about it hurting the regular season. I get it. And in some ways I agree, but I still think this is going to be awesome.
Yeah. I just look at this as it's a step towards the right direction. And I think that, after what just, you can't, making the argument to me that college football is fine. I don't buy it anymore. I don't think it's fine. I think it's a mess. After what just happened with Florida State last season, you can't continue to go forward with the 14 playoff. You just can't. It's just, you can't. It's completely disingenuous. Now, do I think they want to put the 4 best teams in, and Alabama was the best team? Yes, but Florida State still got screwed. You can't have a sport where you go undefeated in your conference and then it's like, well, too bad. You just can't do that. It's not right to sell that to your fans. I am not saying there are 12 teams that can win the national championship. There aren't. Okay? There aren't 68 teams that can win the basketball tournament. Okay?
Yeah,
so what? That's fine. That's fine. We all know the best teams always win in every sport. It's not like any sport really has true parity where anybody can win. That's not the case. It's better for TV ratings when you see the same 4 or 5 teams in it anyway. Because you build up an expectation. People are used to seeing that, and people like what they're used to. So yeah. But so the one thing I did want to talk about the format that I thought was interesting was that so they're going to guarantee spots for the 4 major conferences. So you're going to have the best 3 in the SEC, 3 from the Big 10, 2 from the Big 12, 2 from the ACC, and then the highest ranked group of 5 team. So that adds up to 3, 6, 8, 10, 11. So 11 spots. So if they go to 14, then there'll only be 3 at-large spots. Look, I'm not thrilled with the automatic qualifiers. I think that the conference champion, I don't have any problem with the conference champion getting automatically in and getting seeded accordingly. I think that's fair. It's, sometimes you get teams like in the NFL, you get teams like Tampa this year who gets in and gets a home game when they weren't, they didn't have that good of a team, and those things happen. But I'm okay with that. It's gonna be those conferences anyway. I think that the ACC and the Big 12 are going to like it because they're guaranteed the 2 spots, which they're because they're going to lose the strength of schedule argument every time against the SEC and the Big 10 teams. So I get why they're doing it. I'm not in love with it. Like if you asked me, is that the best way to do it? I would say no, but they don't trust the funniest part about this, Clark, is that the system that they have in place, nobody trusts anything in it. Like, we can't give the committee too much power. The committee doesn't know what they're doing, even though the committee gets it right every single year. But we can't have the committee deciding all of that. So that's kind of what they're trying to do. And then again, my old pal Danny Cannell just can't help himself. He puts out a tweet. We shouldn't have automatic qualifiers or a committee. We should settle it on the field. Okay, Danny, tell me how you're going to do that then, because you're not getting rid of schedule inequity. The teams are scheduling, the weak ass opponents whenever they want, and it's they're just, making the schedules to favor themselves. So I agree with you. I don't like people complaining about it. If you don't have a better solution, then shut the hell up.
Yeah. I mean, again, with the whole, there's no way to completely settle it on the field. It's not like in the NFL, there's 32 teams. You can figure out a way to settle it all on the field. In college football, there's just taking the major conferences, there's like 50.
It's like 70, I think.
So, okay. Yeah. 70. Okay. There's no, and with varying, recruiting advantages and varying budgets and the amount of money they pay their coaches and all that stuff, and just historical precedent for being really good, and just the region of the country they play in, the schedule that they play in, how many cupcake games they have on there. What some teams decide to actually play people out of conference. Most of them don't. So I don't see any way you can just go, well, this team had this record and this team had this record. Based on these series of tiebreakers, this one's better. Because even if you did that, like strength of schedule and some other stuff, people would still bitch and moan about it. So I don't there's no total way to completely settle it on the field. But I'll just say this to Danny Cannell and everybody else who thinks the same way. Guys, more teams are going to be in there. It's going to be in a playoff, and whoever wins advances. That is as close to settling it on the field as you're probably going to get.
Right. If you put 12 teams in, we're getting all the teams that have a legitimate shot to get the national champ to win the title, right? I would say at most it's 6 in a season, maybe 7. But that's pretty rare, in the history I've been watching college football anyway. There's no more than 5 or 6 teams that can win the title, and we're getting all those teams in. Nobody's going to get shafted and left out that had a real shot. And the funniest part to me is that they're complaining about this, and it's like, yeah, you're going to have ACC and Big 12 teams that aren't even ranked in the top 14 that get in. Right. So yeah, I do, but I think the 3 at-large spots are going to cover it. But regardless, we get 12 teams for the next 2 years. Everybody stop complaining. Oh, well, you didn't see if 12 worked. We're going to see it. We're going to get to see if it works.
Hold on one second. I've heard Rich Eisen and other people say this. We haven't seen how 12 teams works yet. What does that mean? It's not going to work? Okay, well, fine. Well, wait a minute. If it doesn't work, then we'll expand it to 14 teams, and then doesn't that fix the problem? What does that mean? It's like, oh, we got to see how this works. It's not like the overtime rules or something. What are you talking about? Oh, we got to see if this works, and if it doesn't, you're going to what? Go back to
Right.
4 teams? We weren't happy with that. Like, what the hell does that mean?
Right. And what does it mean? What is it not working? What does that mean? Because they're single elimination games. You're going to get all the best teams in, and they're going to play each other and see who wins. I don't understand how that doesn't work.
They're settling it on the field. I don't.
Right. Like I'm just curious to see this first year of this. Is there going to be some team that gets when Missouri gets left out of it? Are we going to go, well, Missouri could have won the title? Never, never one time in the history of college football have we ever gone, that team that was 13th, they really had a good shot. Never.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, we could talk about this all day, but I just continue to laugh, and like you tell me all the time, Clark, the media is a clown show. And it just continues to prove it over and over and over again. You guys aren't looking at this holistically. You're just whining like a bunch of old dudes, complaining about the way things used to be and how this is. And I'm sorry, that argument. Well, it was fine before. No, it wasn't. Okay. We've been complaining about it. Everybody's been complaining about college football as far as it goes with that forever. When I first got introduced to it, it was people, why don't they have a playoff system? They really need to get a playoff system. I'm sorry, you can't make that argument that it was fine before. All these teams go into separate bowls, and then we just kind of randomly, a bunch of writers get together and decide who the champion is. It's Mickey Mouse. Don't tell me you're a serious sport. You never were a serious sport. This is as serious as you've ever been.
Yeah.
And it's still ridiculous.
Yeah, what I don't understand is it's like, wait a minute, you're pining for the old days of people sitting in a room smoking cigars and being like, well, I think this is what we should do. This is kind of anti-democratic. I don't care. We have the power. This is what we're going to do. Really? This is what you guys want? That's what you guys want? You're pining for the old days? Like, what?
More games, more good teams, more good games. I don't understand how that can be a negative. But the media can find a way to make a negative out of anything. Anyway, all right, so let's move on. So, Clark, I wanted to talk about some NFL draft stuff. They had the combine, all the quarterbacks that went to the combine got interviewed. Some of them threw, most of them didn't. But I just think, I still think, as far as the number one pick goes, Clark, I think the Bears should take Caleb Williams. But I do find it interesting, Clark. Now we've reached the point now where people are like, yeah, I kind of like this guy better. Oh, you know what? I kind of like Dan Orlovsky's. Like, they should take Jaden Daniels number one. Right. So everybody's got the sexy takes are out, Clark. Everybody's got their take. No, listen, I think Jaden Daniels, but I think Drake May's a little overrated. So it's just kind of funny how this is going to go. And I'm going to laugh when it probably just goes 1, 2, 3, exactly the way that we've been told that it's going to go. But I think where I've gotten to with Caleb Williams is this, Clark. I don't think Caleb Williams is in the all-time clear-cut best prospects. I don't think he's in the John Elway, Peyton Manning, Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck territory. But that being said, I think he's maybe a notch below that. I don't think it's dramatic difference where he's not even close. No, I think he's as far as talent goes, he's incredible. I worry about him going to the Bears, and are they going to have any clue what they're doing as far as using him? But I still think he should be the number one pick, and I think he's the best quarterback in this class, and I don't think it's really debatable. From all the other guys, I just don't feel like they have put up the production. And I mean, if you look at it, Clark, Caleb Williams and Drake May both really didn't have great years last year. So they're both coming in. And now, I don't really care about that. Patrick Mahomes, his team wasn't great in college. It didn't really matter. So I'm not overly swayed by that. What can you do? That's what I care about. I don't really care how your team did in college because it's just irrelevant. Danny Werfel used to win with Florida all the time, couldn't do anything in the NFL. So I don't think team success has any relationship to it. But I think I'm still on the same train. I don't understand the people trying to make the argument for Justin Fields. I think it should be clear cut. You take Caleb Williams and you see what happens. At minimum, just to restart the clock. Just to restart the clock on, because I think it's clear Justin Fields will never be at that, elite level. Caleb Williams still has a
we would have seen it by now.
Right. He still has a chance to get there. Good. So yeah, I don't think he's an all-timer, but I still think he's clearly the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah, it's. I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks, it's going to come down to what's the situation he goes into and how do they prepare him and what's around him and all that kind of stuff. Um, and the Bears, I mean, they've got some decent. It seems like they got some decent stuff they can put around the quarterback. We'll see what their offensive coordinator's like and if they can, you know, bring him along the right way and not really, drastically screw something up. Because with a lot of these quarterbacks, that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, if they get into a good situation, they have a chance to be successful. How far does that go? Like how successful? I mean, it's really. I think with some of these guys, it's tough to tell, and some of them, it's like like Bo Nix, he's kind of undersized. And he played a lot of games in college. There's two ways you can look at that. That's got a lot of experience, but he didn't get drafted before now, so that maybe is a little bit concerning. And then you just the system he played in, like an air raid system, those guys don't tend to translate to the NFL. Now, if you want to put together a tape of Bo Nix and find some stuff where it's like, oh, that's kind of an NFL throw, that's an NFL throw. Okay, fine, you can do that. But I just wonder how much he's going to translate to the NFL. I mean, we've seen in the last several years, we've seen some guys who played in college a long time. They come in and, it doesn't seem like they're that great. Now, guys who just play a really tiny bit in college, they don't tend to be that good either. So it seems like you want to be somewhere in the middle on that. But, I mean, I guess Caleb Williams probably is the best quarterback out of all of them. It's just, God, it's tough to tell. It's tough to project these guys. And I'm so leery of a lot of these analysts because they were telling me about Bryce Young and they were telling me about Tua and they're telling me about all these different guys. And then they come in and I'm just like, yeah, guys, how did you not see that? And then it's like CJ Stroud comes in and he's really good. It's like, how the hell did you guys not see this? It's like, well, I mean, we didn't really know. It's like, come on, some people knew. So, yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I feel like this quarterback draft class was really hyped up. I mean, what are we really going to get out of it? Like Caleb Williams might come in and be really good, right? Maybe one of these other guys ends up having success. But there's going to be a bust in there somewhere. Michael Penix could be a bust. I mean, Bo Nix could be a bust. Hell, some people are going to draft J.J. McCarthy. That might not work. Jaden Daniels, we don't really know.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels had one good year, and plus he's one of the J.J. McCarthy and Jaden Daniels have the same kind of problem. They're skinny, they're tall, and they're not really big. So that's going to be an issue. Drake May and Caleb Williams, they have the physical tools and all the ability that they could make it work. I feel like they could make it work in multiple places. Everybody else, to me, they have to go to the right team.
Yeah.
Otherwise, their career is going to be very short. I think we all went crazy because these guys were all really good in college, and but this is how the NFL works, Clark. Usually, one quarterback in the first round is usually really good. Then maybe some years you get a second one. Maybe that's not the case. And right now, they're not even projecting Bo Nix or Penix to go in the first round. So
that's probably the smart thing. Although I will say, the draft is funny because we're saying that now, but you know how that has a tendency to change over the next month. People are like, oh, well, I don't know. They start talking it up, and then it
Well, yeah. Well, with how high J.J. McCarthy's gotten in the draft, and then I expect a team to trade back into the first round to grab a quarterback. I think that's probably going to happen. It usually happens in the NFL these days. So yeah. But I don't think any of these guys is a sure thing. But I think there's just a lot of talent out there, and if you get the guy with the right coach and the right situation, I think they could succeed. But other than that, it's going to be really difficult. But I think
just real quick, where do you think a possible good situations could be?
I think if JJ McCarthy goes to Denver, like they're talking about, I think that could work because Sean Payton will give him all the throws that he can make. He'll run. Sean Payton will run the system for him, and it's very point A to point B. He tells you the quarterback exactly where he has to go with the ball. And that's what the good offensive coaches do, by the way. It's not universal to just him. That's what good offensive coaches do. How do you think the Minnesota Vikings won a game with, God, who was the quarterback they got that week? Dobbs, Josh Dobbs. They brought him in that week, and Kevin O'Connell basically told him, okay, here's what you're going to do. And he did that, and they won the game. So, that's what good quarterback coaches do. I worry a lot about Jaden Daniels if he goes to New England because they clearly don't have a clue. They have no talent on offense. So I would really worry about him going out there and getting his ass kicked because I don't feel like they have a clue. Washington, they've got Cliff Kingsbury as the OC. So I feel like that guy knows what he's doing and should be able to work with Drake May. We're talking situations, right? I think Minnesota. I think if Minnesota took one of them, I think they'd have a really good shot.
Right.
Even if they brought Kirk Cousins back, I think taking one of those
especially if Minnesota's drafting lower down, then it's like, okay, you don't have to play right away. And I know some people get down on like, oh well, you got to bring the quarterback and he's got to play. No, not necessarily. Sometimes you can sit for a year and a half, and you can learn a lot and be ready to really ready to go when they actually put you in the game. So,
if Minnesota took somebody in the second round, I think that would work. I don't think they have the 11th pick, so they take the guy in the first round. But I don't know that they're going to do that. Like if Kirk Cousins is coming back, I don't see that they're going to do that. The real thing in this draft, Clark, the breaking point is going to be New Orleans has the 14th pick. If we get past New Orleans, nobody's picking a quarterback for a while because all the other teams after that have quarterbacks. I think Atlanta is interesting. Because Raheem Morris brought the one of the coaches from the Rams, so he's going to be running the Sean McVay system, which is really good for quarterbacks. So I think that Atlanta is a really interesting one at the 8th pick. So we'll see. But yeah, I think the situation is just going to have a lot to do with it. And the draft is weird, Clark. You get one team who likes a guy and they take him before they should, and then all of a sudden it changes everything going on after it. So we might be sitting there looking at 3 quarterbacks sitting there, and we're halfway through the first round, and they're just kind of pick after pick comes, and they're not getting chosen because teams don't need him. But yeah, I think that the NFL is really situation dependent. The other thing, I mean, we talked about this before with Justin Fields, but it just it continues to boggle my mind how these analysts come on and defend Justin Fields. It's just kind of like, again, I like the kid. Like I get what you're saying. I understand, but I'm sorry, guys. Like I'm not just hanging on. He's going to his 3rd different offensive coordinator now. Like I just think we're putting too much on him, and I think he would be better off going to a different situation.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson. So this one I find fascinating, Clark. Russell Wilson, who I don't know if anybody knows this, but he's going to get cut. So I just want people to realize that.
I love how no one's really saying that, but yeah, that's what's going to happen. We know that's what's going to happen.
This isn't breaking news. Sean Payton was in a press conference the other day talking about, we got to make sure we pick the right guy. It's can
I just point this out real quick? So Dan Patrick has Louis Riddick on his show the other day. They're talking about the draft and some other stuff, and he's like, "Well, why didn't it work with Russell Wilson in Denver?" And he's like, "Well, their personalities clash." And I'm like, no, I don't care about their personalities clashing. Did you watch him? He sucks. He can't freaking play. It's like, oh, well, their personalities didn't clash. If he could play and they were making plays, they were scoring points, they'd figure that shit out. Okay? Don't give me the personalities clash. Anyway, continue.
No, and by the way, he's correct about that. Their personalities are not in line. Sean Payton is do it this way. This is how you do it. And Russell Wilson is not doing that, which is, by the way, we can talk about personality conflict all you want. If Russell Wilson was doing what the coach was asking him to do, they'd be keeping him. So it's a bad argument. And the other thing is, don't give me numbers on how Russell Wilson did last year, okay? I watched the games. All you got to do is watch the games. He's not good. Okay, he completes 4-yard passes to running backs most of the time. The reason his yards per attempt look good is because 2 or 3 times a game he just chucks it down the field to somebody, and maybe he catches it, maybe he doesn't. But they had a chance to make the playoffs, Clark. They benched Russell Wilson for the last 2 games. They said, you know what? We're not interested. We're not playing you anymore. So don't tell me the guy's really good, because if he was, that's not how the team would be reacting. Never in the history of any sport has a player been killing it, and the team's like, you know what? You don't need to play.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen for a reason. So I'm just blown away by these people trying to defend Russell Wilson's numbers and then try to tell me that the best one, Clark, is, well, no, if Pittsburgh gets him, boy, that'd be great for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh will really do well with him. And I'm just like, why would you do that when Kenny Pickett does basically the same thing that Russell Wilson does?
Yeah.
Like, he's not any better than him. Like, and listen, again, I like Russell Wilson, okay? What he did for the first 10 years of his career is unbelievable. I'm not saying he's not a great player. He was a great player. That's the key thing. He was a great player. He's not a great player anymore. Now, can he still have a job in the NFL? Sure. Absolutely. And if Pittsburgh can get him cheap, as far as getting a sale, I get that. As far as the contract goes, you can get him dirt cheap. I understand that. Like,
Yep.
I'm totally with that argument. Like, as far as backup quarterbacks go, he's going to be the cheapest one you can get, and he's better than just about any backup quarterback. So I get that argument, but bringing Russell Wilson in and thinking he's going to change my franchise, like, come on, people. I don't understand. And I think, Clark, this is another thing with the media. They like Russell Wilson. They like Sean Payton. They don't want to come on the air and just tell the truth about it, even though it's plain and anybody can see it.
Yeah. There's got to be something like that in play, because I'm just like, guys, are you not watching? Like, I don't understand this. Like, he's clearly not that good. They're not scoring a lot of points. The offense is not very efficient, and then when he would get into a game against, a big game, he'd play like shit, or he'd turn the ball over. And it's like, it's like, well, they had a chance to make the play. Yeah, and he wasn't playing well enough. And by the way, some of those games they won under mysterious circumstances. I mean, they wouldn't have beat the Bills if the Bills didn't have 12 men on the field.
Yep.
So,
or miss the field goal. So yeah, it's ridiculous. Go back and watch the New England game they played last year, and then try to tell me, boy, no, Russell Wilson's fine. Like, anyway. All right, so let's move on to some NBA topics. So this is something you brought up the other day. LeBron James' son, Bronny, very creative name, was not the latest mock drafts. They've basically taken him out of the mock drafts because they don't think he's going to come out after his freshman year. They think he's probably going to go back to school, which is a reasonable take because I think he averages about 4 points a game. So
yeah.
it's totally understandable. Plus he missed, the first part of the season because of the heart condition. So he's kind of just getting back into, basketball shape basically. And so then LeBron put out a tweet basically saying, can't you guys let this kid live his life and not worry about all this draft stuff? And it's curious coming from LeBron, because LeBron has been the one the whole time saying he wants to play with his son, trying to jazz up his son, all this stuff. And it's like, okay. So, Clark, you have the floor.
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, LeBron's complaining about this, and it's like, LeBron, you keep like tweeting about, and it's not just the tweeting about the mock draft thing. He's like watching NBA League Pass, saying my son is better than a lot of these players that I'm watching, and it's like, my son could play on the Lakers right now. It's like, what, LeBron? Look, what are you doing? Okay, like literally, what are you doing? Don't put. He should never have said that he wants to play in the NBA with his son. I can understand if he wants to do that. That's great. I totally get that. But why would you put the pressure on your son of having to make the NBA? I mean, maybe he will, but it's far from a foregone conclusion that he's going to make it onto an NBA roster. I mean. And I don't look, again, he's a kid. I don't want to like rip on him. I mean, he just had that heart issue. I'm glad he's alive. I'm glad he's still playing, but like he's only 6'3". Okay. It's not like, I mean, LeBron, part of the reason you came into the NBA with so much hype is because you're 6'8", and you're really athletic. So yeah, I just think like LeBron, like it feels like you kind of hyped your kid up, and so then the media is going to talk about it because you were hyping it up. I think you probably needed to just, not really get into it really at all. I mean, just say, oh, I'm glad my son's playing in college and I hope he does well, and like cheer him on the sidelines. And if he has a good game, be like, I'm really proud of my son. He just played a good game at USC. Like, I don't think he should be talking about playing with him in the NBA or like what, he's better than all these other players, because that puts pressure there that doesn't really need to be applied. Because, I mean, what if he doesn't make the NBA? Did he fail? It's like, no. He's his career is going to be his career. It's not going to be LeBron's career. So I just think LeBron complaining about this is like, dude, I feel like you kind of created this and now you're complaining about it. Like, you really need to stop talking about this stuff and just, like, if you want him to just be a kid and play basketball, then fine. Let him just be a kid. Don't be tweeting about it or talking to the media about it after Lakers games.
Well, and the other thing isn't the fact that they didn't put him in the mock draft kind of a good thing? Like, they didn't put him in the mock draft. It's like, well, LeBron, they're telling you they don't think your son's going to go to the NBA next year. What's wrong with that? Doesn't that take the pressure off? Like, if he was a top 15 pick, I feel like that would create more issues than it's worth.
Right.
So, yeah, it works out perfectly, LeBron, if you just shut the hell up.
Yeah, and I think the media has been kind of irresponsible with this, because, like, I remember when, like, LeBron was first talking about, I want to play in the NBA with my kid. It was like, they were all like, oh, yeah, okay, so he's going to go to college 1 year and then he's going to come out. And I'm like, are you guys analyzing this at all? Like, thinking if that's an actual, like, reasonable take that he's going to be a one and done player in college? And I remember hearing about that. Like I remember Rick Buger talking about it. He's like, yeah, I don't know if Bronny's like an NBA player yet. And he was being really measured in the way he was talking about it. But I'm just like, aren't you guys the media? Aren't you supposed to analyze this and, tell us if you think this is actually a good take that this kid can play in the NBA? Like, that's just kind of malpractice to me.
Well, and it's perfectly fine. He's 18 years old. It's fine. Yeah. He can do whatever he needs to do. Like, he's got a scholarship to USC. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, we're all pulling for the kid. So yeah, I think that, LeBron has contributed to this story than more than he should have. So I watched the Lakers and the Nuggets last night. Lakers kind of had the lead, and then Denver basically put it on them in the second half. And, yeah. So there's a couple of different offshoots of this. Number one, I think that, this is the time of the season, Clark, where everybody gets excited about the Lakers and the Warriors, even though they're the ninth and 10th seed in the West. And don't give me health. They've been reasonably healthy enough to have better records than that. LeBron and Anthony Davis have been healthy basically the whole season.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of this stuff about people trying to sell me on these shows, specifically Colin Cowherd, about how good the Warriors and the Lakers are going to be. Like, I'm sorry. I think neither team is going anywhere. Neither team's going to win anything. And by the way, if I had to say which team has a better chance, I would take the Lakers because of the size and athleticism that they have. Like, they played well in that game.
Yeah,
last night against Denver.
They were right in the game, yeah.
But it didn't matter. You know why? Because Denver has more offensive firepower, and once they put the clamps on defense, that's it. You're done. Because you can't. It's just very few teams have enough offensive firepower to keep up with them as it is. And Denver can get it from so many guys. So, yeah, I think that's kind of funny that and Clark, I think they were talking about this on NBA Countdown I think it was the post-game show. We're acting like Denver is sneaking up on people. Like, Denver's like, we're acting like Denver's like an also ran like a nice up-and-coming team. It's like, they're the champions. They won the freaking championship last year, and we're just like, I don't know. It's unbelievable. Like, you watch them, and they're clearly the best team. It's like, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out, but you guys keep trying to make it more interesting. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith rips Anthony Davis, of course, because Anthony Davis isn't scoring 30 points every game, even though that's not who Anthony Davis has been his entire career. He had a great year in New Orleans where he had averaged like 28, 29 a game. And then he had a really nice playoff run in the bubble. He's never been, I'm scoring 30 points every game. That's never who he's been. So you can blame a lot of stuff for the Lakers. I think more of their issue is that they don't have enough shooting.
Yeah.
That's really the problem. You know, if
Right.
D'Angelo Russell is not making shots, their offense just isn't good enough. And their offense hasn't been good enough the whole time LeBron's been there. He's just done the best he can to try to make it work.
What I just think is funny is all these people were hyping up the Lakers at the end of last season. It felt like what you guys were saying is, well, if they had this roster for an entire season, they'd be really good. Well, they've had the same roster now for an entire, well, not an entire season, but 65% of the season, and they're the 10th seed.
Yeah,
So-
I'm confused. I don't know why. By the way, I know why the Warriors aren't good enough. Like that, I can tell
Right.
you. They're depending on some young guys who aren't ready to go. Klay Thompson's now coming off the bench. They don't have enough size. Like, there's problems with the Warriors that I can clearly tell you. The Lakers, I can't really explain why they haven't played better. I'm kind of surprised that they have as bad a record as they do when they've gotten relative health from most of their guys.
Yeah.
So it's just that's kind of interesting. The other thing I wanted to talk about as far as the NBA goes, and we've talked about this before with the Celtics, Clark. So right now, the Celtics have a 44-point lead on the Warriors. They scored 82 points in the first half against the Warriors. So that should make my Warriors argument pretty solidly. But anyway,
Yeah.
so the Celtics. So Clark, and here's my question to you, Clark. Are we nitpicking the Celtics now? Are we nitpicking them too much that they've got the best record in the league and they've won 10 in a row?
Well, I mean, they had defensive problems last year. Now it's a little better because they have Drew Holiday now, but Porzingis, he's never really shown an ability to stay healthy. Although he's been pretty healthy this season. I mean, we'll see if it stays that way. And then we have problems with their coaching based on last year. I mean, they should not have lost to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, by the way, let's not forget this. I know people go, "Oh, they lost in 7 games." Yeah, they were down 3-0 in the series. Okay, you had no business being down 3-0. So I don't really think we're necessarily nitpicking. I mean, you kind of get down to nitpicking because they're a team that's trying to win a championship. So what's left to do but nitpick? I mean, because you expect them to be good enough to make it to at least make it to the finals and be competitive. So, and they failed to do that last year. So, and then of course they played the Warriors in the finals, and they were up 2-1, and they let the series slip away. So, I think it's okay to kind of nitpick some things here and there. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, put it this way: if they make it to the finals again, then I'm not necessarily really going to nitpick them. But I mean, I think we know what their issues are, right? They get to the end of these close games, and their offense just kind of dries up. And defensively, they were slipping defensively. Now that was last year. They have Holiday this year, so I think that helps, and hopefully they'll be better in the playoffs. But
Yeah, so I agree. I don't think we're nitpicking because we saw what their problems were. We've watched their problems in the playoffs. We've seen what it is. I don't think it's nitpicking to suggest that they rely too much on threes and their coaching is subpar. I don't think those are things that are, but that being said, how I care about regular season statistics, but regardless, we'll talk about it anyway. The Celtics are first in offensive rating and third in defensive rating. So what I would say is that, the nitpicks on the Celtics, yes. What are they going to do at the end of games? Who's going to take shots at the end? What is your offense like in the fourth quarter? Do the right people take the shots? Is Porzingis going to stay healthy, right? Those are all things that we can nitpick, or we can make comments about, be worried about when it comes to winning the title. What I would say to that is, though, in the Celtics events, what I would say is, if you're going to tell me they're going to be better on defense because they've got Holiday, because Porzingis is actually a pretty good defensive player, if you're going to tell me, okay, their defense maybe can make up for that, make up for some of those when they're having a bad shooting night, or they're not making their threes or whatever, but they still shoot the most threes in the NBA. And historically, that doesn't usually work. And I know everybody's going to go, well, the Warriors were never leading the league in three-point shooting. It's a complete misnomer. They won. They made up for it with their great defense. They were their best offensive and defensive team. That's why they won. not because they made a bunch of threes. So that's what worries me about the Celtics. What's going to happen when we get into these tight games? Now, the other argument is there a team in the East that can actually do that?
I was about to say that, yeah.
And right now with Embiid out, and we've seen Milwaukee's kind of a mess, especially defensively. Like, I think the Knicks might be the only team who could kind of try to drag them into a street fight, but the Knicks don't have the offensive firepower. So I think that, yes, the Celtics should go to the finals. I'm right where we were last season, Clark. The Celtics should go to the finals. But would I put my money on them? No. If you put a gun to my head, would I go, the Celtics are definitely going to the finals? No, I wouldn't. And I don't care what their regular season record is. I don't care how many teams they've beaten. I don't care that they're beating the Warriors by 40 right now. It makes no difference to me. The playoffs are a different animal, especially in this sport. The playoffs is completely different. It's a completely different animal than the regular season.
Yeah, and I mean, as a Miami Heat fan, I'd love to see a rematch, because what's funny to me is, like, people will be like, but what if the Heat lose? Yeah, what if they do? I don't really care. The Celtics are supposed to win.
Right.
That's just a fun series for me. I mean, because the Heat could just scare them and then lose, and I'd be like, whatever. The Heat aren't good enough. So what?
Because Miami knows how to play the Celtics.
Yep.
They know exactly what it is. They know how to play them. And we've just seen it in these games. The Celtics, they just go into 3-point shooting mode, and if they're not making them, they can get themselves in big trouble. Plus, I know Porzingis is a 7-footer, but they don't have a lot of size. They got Porzingis and Horford. That's going to be a tough deal. I said when they made the trade, I'm like, okay, who's guarding Giannis?
Yeah.
Who's going to guard
Embiid.
Giannis if you have to play him, or Embiid? What are you going to do? So that being said, the Celtics beat the Sixers last year. Their backs were against the wall. They delivered. Anyway, all right. So before we get out of here, Clark, I think we should just spend a few minutes on the Clippers. They've struggled lately. They blew a 21-point lead to the Lakers the other night, which I don't really take that much from. LeBron, started making threes at a ridiculous rate, which he doesn't normally do that. But my concern with the Clippers is, and they've kind of fallen back a few games here. Same thing, same as always, Clark. If James Harden completely no-shows, what's going to happen? And I've heard the argument recently, well, it doesn't matter. James Harden doesn't matter as much because they have Kawhi and Paul George, so they're not totally depending on James Harden. Yeah, but watch the Clippers play. They treat James Harden like he's the point guard. He gets the ball all the time. So if he does what he did against Philadelphia when he played for Philadelphia last year, and just no-shows, we'll see what happens. Because you've seen Kawhi and Paul George, not distributors. They're not guys who make the offense go. They themselves can get going. And that's what concerned me in that Clippers-Lakers game the other night. They could not get the ball to Kawhi. He touched the ball maybe twice in the fourth quarter. It's like, what are you guys doing? He's the best player. I don't know why you're so. I just feel like the Clippers could end up in an identity crisis in the playoffs, and that's not gonna work well for you. So we'll see how it goes. I think they're really talented, and I think they're talented enough to make it to the finals. But I'm just concerned that James Harden's going to pull the same crap he does, and how is the team going to deal with that?
Yeah, that's always the thing. I mean, yeah, because the playoffs are different, because it's like, oh, well, James Harden's playing well. Yeah, it's the regular season. He's played well in the regular season before. We've seen that, but when he gets to the playoffs, he doesn't play as well. Yeah,
and I think Bill Simmons' tweet today or yesterday perfectly sums it up. Yeah, Boston's won 10 in a row. The road to the finals still goes through Denver. So, it's like, yeah, Boston's really good. Denver's still, I'm sorry, man. Somebody's going to have to beat them. You're going to have to prove to me you can beat them. And I don't see it, man. I don't see these other teams beating Denver. You can talk to me about Minnesota and Oklahoma City and all of this stuff. You can, whatever.
I mean, Minnesota and Oklahoma City are interesting, and they seem like a team that, a couple years from now, maybe they're, trying to win it all. Because you don't just go from not making the playoffs to... Actually, did Oklahoma City make the playoffs last year?
Yeah, they were in the play-in, and Minnesota beat them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but you don't just go from, we haven't won a playoff series together to we're going to the finals. It usually doesn't happen that way. So, yeah, maybe, a couple years from now, because they've really, especially Oklahoma City, they really got, a really nice team. So, yeah, it's just you can't really buy into them going all the way to the finals. Especially especially in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and Denver's only a game and a half out of the number 1 seed. So
Okay.
we'll see. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to it. This is going to be a fun stretch run. We got about 6 weeks until the playoffs. So I think this will be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But all right, Clark, anything else?
No, I think that's good.
All right, folks, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Glad to be here. Enjoy this weekend, and we'll see you soon.